everybody, and welcome back to another video in our web development series. In this video, we're going to be looking at CSS variables, what they are and why you should use them. So let's real quick go ahead and generate some boilerplate code, and we're going to call this CSS variables. And down here, before we even talk about what variables are, let's just go ahead and set up a basic HTML structure here. So inside of here, if I say div.container, and this is just going to be a container that we're going to dump a bunch of other elements into. And then if I say div.box, and then inside of this box, let's put a header. So we'll do h1 and we'll call this CSS. And then after that header, let's do a p tag as well. And in there, I don't really care. Let's just put some garbage text, lorem 40, enter. And then after that, let's go ahead and just copy this entire div. So shift alt down arrow. And then once you have that, let's change this from CSS to HTML. And finally, after this second div, let's go ahead and make just one more h1 class. Actually, let's put this after the outer container div, and we'll just call it h1, and this is going to be a .javascript header. And now if I hit enter, inside of here, let's just add JavaScript. And if I save that, now you can see on our website, we've got basically CSS, HTML, both of those have some text blocks with them. And then finally, JavaScript down below. So if we come now into our style CSS, actually, before we come into that, we better link our style CSS. So there we go. We've got a link now to style.css. Save your HTML file. And now inside of styles CSS, let's go ahead and start building this out to make it look just a little bit better. So in here, let's go ahead and use our class selector to select our container. And then inside the container, we can just say display, and we're going to set that equal to flex. Now, if I go ahead and save that, you can see we get CSS and then HTML side by side. So now let's add just a little bit to our box class here. So we're going to say box, and inside of here, let's add some margin. We'll say 20 pixels all the way around, and then let's add some padding as well. And that we can do 10 pixels on the top and the bottom, and then 20 pixels on the left and the right. And then after that, let's give this a border radius to give it just a little bit of a rounded look. So we could say border radius, and maybe we'll set that equal to 20 pixels. And then after that, let's go ahead and give this, let's see, we'll give it some background color. So we can say background color is equal to blue. And then our text color can be equal to white. And now let's just go ahead and see how that looks. So we've got blue boxes with white on it. Let's add a shadow to the back of that. So we can do box, shadow, and then in here, we'll say maybe 20 pixels for the X offset, 10 pixels for the Y offset, and then maybe with just a 2 pixel blur radius. And in here, we're going to go ahead and set the color here equal to maybe dark, maybe just dark blue. Save that and see how that looks. Okay, have a little bit of shadow there. Now, before we move on, let's go ahead and real quick add a couple styles to this JavaScript header down below as well. So we're going to say .javascript header. And then inside of here, we say margin, and maybe our margin, we want that to be the same. So we can say 20 pixels on that. And then down here, we can say our padding. We also want that to be the same, 10 pixels on the top and 20 pixels on the bottom. And then after that, let's go ahead and give this one a background color as well. We'll say red. And then after that, we can do a border radius as well, and 20 pixels. And then finally, down here, we can say our color for our text is going to be white. And down here, we'll do another box, shadow, And this is going to be 20 pixels with a 10 pixel Y offset with a 2 pixel blur radius and then dark red. Okay, now if I save that, there we go. We've got this file here, and you've got some red, white, and blue. Very, I guess, American patriotic. Did not do that on purpose. Anyway, we've got red, white, and blue here. And we have actually a lot of repeated stuff here. So you have color, white, border radius 20, border radius 20. And right now, it's not a big deal to repeat it in just this element and this element because we only have 3 elements on our entire page, or at least 3 divs that we're styling on our entire page. But what if we had like maybe 30 of them or 40 or 100 of them? And what if we had 20 pages on our website and each one of these we were setting to 20 pixels for the border radius so that they all look consistent? Well, then what happens if I turn it over to my client and they say, no, that's a little bit too much. How about you bump that back to maybe 15 pixels? It's like, okay, well then I have to come in here and change it here and here. And if I have a page with 30 elements on it, I have to change it on every line. And then if I have 20 pages on this website, I have to go into every single page and make that change a whole bunch of times. So there's actually a better way to do this. And we can change this, or we can actually set this in one spot and use that value all the way throughout our application. So we can do that using something called a CSS variable. And a variable, think of a variable as like just a box that we can store a piece of information, or specifically a value. We can store a value inside of this box, and then we can repeatedly refer to that value over and over and over again. Kind of like here, you have background color blue. Well, we could save whatever value we want, including a color, inside of a variable, and then we can use it wherever we want. So to do that, in here, I can say, for example, I can say dash dash, and you always do 2 dashes in CSS for whenever you're making a variable, dash dash corners. And then if I set that equal to my 20 pixel value, now, instead of actually using 20 pixels down below, if I copy corners, I can come down here, delete the 20 pixels, and I can say var, V-A-R. And then inside of there, if I hand it my corners variable and hit save, you can see now, using this variable on my website, the corners on these things are all the same. Well, what's the value of this? Isn't this more code? Well, in this case, it is more code because we have an extra line here, and we're only using that in one spot. But really, we can use this wherever we want to. For example, down here, we have our border radius, and that 20 pixels is exactly the same, right? This is the same value here that we're using here. So why don't we use the same value? And then anytime we need to change it, if we want to keep the theme consistent across our entire website, we only have to change that in one spot if we're consistently using that variable. So let's go ahead and do that. Down here, we can delete that 20 pixels and we can say var corners. Now, if I save that, you'll notice we have an immediate problem, right? We have round corners up here because they're getting that 20 pixel value, but down here we have square corners, even though I'm handing it that 20 pixel value. So what's going on? Well, basically every variable has something called scope, and scope is going to be essentially where that variable is defined and where you can use it. So if I define a variable right here inside of my box class, well, then I can only use this variable inside of my box class or any children class to the box class. But here, JavaScript header, well, this class is not a child class of the box class, so I can't use it there. So by trying to use this, essentially I'm referencing a variable that's undefined. And because I'm doing that, this is going to default back to the default value, which is 0, which is going to give you that square corner again. So the solution for that is, instead of defining my corners variable here, we need to define that in our parent element. and we're going to do essentially what's called a global variable. And to do a global variable, we are going to come up here and basically we're going to go to the root element, which in our case is going to be our HTML. But we're going to use the root pseudo class up here. And then inside of the root pseudo class, if we put that variable, and now if I save that, you can see that I have it applied here on my top with the blue one, but also on the bottom on the red one. And this is actually quite useful because now this is global not just to this file, but if I were to cut this out and then make a new file over here, we'll go ahead and call this globals.css. And if I paste these into here and save that file and then come back into here and save this file, you'll see our corners went away again. But the reason for that is because we forgot to link our second file, our global CSS, inside of our index HTML. So if I come into the index HTML and copy that line, and now if I change the style to globals and hit save, you can see that actually in this style.css that we're using to style everything in our index.html, we can pull these global variables from our globals.css. So this is actually really powerful because any variables that I need to define my color scheme or my theme or my font sizing or whatever it is that you want to keep consistent across your application, you can put them as variables inside of this global, and you can put them in this application inside of this globals.css, and then you can access those values from anywhere inside of the application. And now let's say I have 40 HTML files in here that are all using CSS files that are using this corner value. Well, if I need to change them all, that's no big deal. I go into this one file and change one value instead of having to go line by line through every single style, every single place this value is used in the entire application. So another big application of this is for color themes. So really quick, I'll just show you this right here. This website right here is called coolers.co. I'll put the link for this down in the description of this video below. But it's all about color schemes for your website or your app or whatever it is that you're building. And if you're not an expert on color theory, like most developers are not, I would highly recommend that you use other people's color schemes when building your applications, or you just pull your theming directly from a layout that was created by a UI UX designer. So if you come into here, they've got a ton of different things that you can do. But what I'm just going to do right now is if I click Explore Trending Palettes, it's going to come up with a whole bunch of palettes that are pretty popular right now. And let's just pick one of these. So if you remember our application, we've got red, white, and blue. So why don't we just pick this one right here? If I do click on the three dots, and if I do export palette, there's an option here for CSS. So now if I were just to copy all of these CSS hex values, if I copy all of these and come back into my globals, well, I can paste all of these as variables inside of here. And then I can use these within my style.css. So if I come in here now, instead of blue, well, let's say that we want to do our Prussian blue. So I can do var -- Prussian blue, and that's going to give me exactly what I want. And then instead of dark blue for the shadow, let's just say we want to do var, and then we want to do this air superiority blue. And then down here, same thing for red. Let's say instead of a bright red, I want to do a fire brick. So fire brick. And then down here, instead of dark red, we want to do barn red. So var barn red. And instead of white for my font, what if we want to use that papaya whip? Well, we can do that var papaya whip. And then let's do that same thing for the color up above in our other boxes. If I copy that and paste it up here, and then go ahead and save that file. Now, if you come back here, save that file, make sure to save everything. Now, if you come back up here, you can see that, okay, right here, we forgot to put a var around this one. So let's go ahead and put the var tag around that and hit save. And now you see we've got, so our font color didn't work because, again, these all have 2 dashes at the beginning of them because that's the standard way of naming variables in CSS. And down here, I just typed papaya. So let's put 2 dashes on all of these. These, of course, have to match exactly. And then you hit save, and there you go. We've got our dark blue with the white text, and then the blue background, and then the red with a dark red with a white text again. And this is a color theme that is, I mean, it's already trending. It's already popular. People already are using it and liking it. So why change that? Let's just go with that for right now for our demo app here. But another cool thing that you can do from this site, actually, if you come down here, they've got a whole bunch of gradients too that you can copy. So it gives you a colors theme, and that also gives you a gradient along with that. So if we just maybe copy one of these and then come over into our globals, we can add a gradient here as well. So let's just say background gradient. And if we just set that equal to that, and then come back here, let's copy that new variable name. So if I copy that, come back into styles, and now if I want to apply that as a background, I can simply use my element selector to get my body, and then in here I can just say background, and all I need to do is say var and then paste that variable. One more thing, we'll go ahead and set the height for this to going to be the 100% of the viewport height. So I could say height is going to be 100 VH, and then we'll just do width. Well, let's just leave it at that and see how this looks. So if I go ahead and hit save on that now and come back to my website, you can see now I have this nice gradient over the background of my entire web page. So this color scheme here that it gives you not only all of the different CSS variables that you'll need to define a color scheme along with good names for them, but it is also going to give you any types of gradients that you might want to use as well with that color scheme. And you can apply that gradient on a background, on a box, on text, on really anything you want to apply that gradient on. So this is actually a really handy tool, coolors.co. I definitely recommend, if you're doing projects on your own, that you just take color schemes from them. If you're obviously working in a professional context, then probably your UI, UX developers and layout designers will go ahead and provide all of those themes and all that information for you. But anyway, this is a good tool to have in your back pocket, and definitely hold on to that. I hope you can see how variables are going to definitely make your life easier, because now, for example, if we have all of this stuff and we say, hey, I don't really like this red color, or I don't really like this white color, it's a little too yellowish. Well, we can change that very easily by just coming into here, and we can change it to whatever we want. We can make it more yellow, we can make it less yellow, we can make it really whatever color we want. And whatever color we set this to now, it's going to show up all across our entire application. But again, this is not a good color look. That's why we use color schemes that other people defined. So let's leave it at that. And I hope you see, though, how variables are a very easy way to have just one value that you use consistently across your website or your application. And that way, if you ever need to go back and change it, you only have to change it in one spot, rather than going through every single page and changing it in every single spot you use it. So definitely practice this, understand it. If you don't understand it, watch the video again, read the reference material. I'm going to link down below. And really, really pay attention, because you need to understand this if you're going to master coding. So with all that said, leave a comment down below telling us any questions, any comments, any feedback that you have, and then make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you in the next video.